You know, we mentioned before about making Italian ice today, just a pure Italian ice, and I didn't realize it is on my schedule, but I'm not sure you'd call it a pure Italian ice. It's chocolate fudge brownie Italian ice. That's basically putting the whole kitchen sink in, but it's sugar, water, and flavor. So that's what we're going to make, and I'll pass this out. I took the liberty while Jeff was talking of going ahead and mixing the sugar and the water. I use just pure cane sugar, very simple stuff, tap water, and surprisingly sugar water will dissolve very easily in normal tap water temperature, whatever that tap water temperature is. Here in Florida it's pretty warm, but it'll dissolve in 60 seconds or less. And in this recipe I'm using 4 quarts of water and 1.5 pounds of sugar. So when I pour it in, even if I end up with just a little stream of sugar left, it isn't going to make any difference at all because it's not that critical. Before I go any further, one thing that's important, though, that people ask about is, what about the water? Do I have to purify the water? And the answer is yes and no.
Is it time for the peanut butter?
It's gone. What? Oh, no, it's right here.
Oh, okay.
Here you go. Gee, Crystal, I didn't know you were so hungry. You want to just take it away? Thank you. When you call, this is Crystal, and when you call, you'll probably speak to her first, and she'll get you through to anybody you need. Do you purify the water? It's a good question. We're in Brooksville, Florida, which you've seen has got cows and turkeys and snakes and possums, and that's about it. There's no tourism here. You're Newport Richey? Okay, so you have a little bit more varied amount of people, but still not what you would call a huge tourist area. So if I'm making this Italian ice for Brooksville, I don't need to do anything to the water. The water is terrible here. I come down from New York where the water is wonderful. We start up at the Kensico Dam, and we've got this big chicken wire which separates the water from the dead bodies and the tires. And that's part of the purification system. And then we work our way down. But here, it's a high mineral content because Florida is practically an island. And I found it quite surprising how much I didn't like the water. But if you grew up in here in Brooksville all your life, this is the only water you've ever known. And there's no tourists coming to Brooksville. So my clientele thinks this water is just fine. So there's no reason to purify it because it's what they're used to. Now you go down to Miami and it's a bunch of us New Yorkers coming down on vacation who are used to New York style water, which isn't as high in mineral content by any means as this. So if I was setting up business in South Florida, I would probably purify the water. But for here, you don't need to. So, do you need to purify the water? Well, tell me who your clientele is. If it's tourists, yeah, I want to make it as neutral as I can. If it's locals, I don't have to do it. So we got 4 quarts of water, 1.5 pounds of sugar. I've got fresh baked brownies right here. Fresh baked.
By whom?
Paula.
Okay.
With my help. I said, go Paula. A can of Hershey's Fudge and an ounce of vanilla. This is pretty close to the Mississippi mud pie except for the brownies and the fact that we're doing it in just sugar and water. And no bourbon. So let me pour this in. I found that if you rest the container on the lid, and this is true of everything, even my coffee maker, if I rest the container on the coffee maker, it spills all over the place. But if you raise it up a little bit, you don't have a problem. There you go. Not a drop. And I only have one eye, so that's pretty good. Sugar and water. Going to turn this on. Now, someone brought up to me during the break my error. I didn't explain to you the infinite overrun control. This is something I invented now. It's 14 years ago, where we can change the speed of the drop products. The difference between homemade ice cream and super premium is homemade is what we call 100% overrun, or maximum legal air. Super premium is less air. Gelato is even less air than that, and custard, frozen custard, is the least amount of air. So it's just the amount of air that we're adjusting. Italian ices, you're going to take on some air, but if you've ever been up north and you go to a lake that's frozen, ice expands. Or even if you just have an ice cube tray. You know, most people don't know what an ice cube tray is anymore if they're under 30. But this group looks like this. Yeah, Chris, this group otherwise knows what an ice cube tray is. You fill an ice cube tray with water up to the top, put it in the freezer, and all of a sudden all your ice cubes are crowned over because water expands when it's frozen. So if you had a boat up in Lake Michigan and Lake Michigan froze over, it'll just crush your boat because the water expands the ice around it. So we're going to get some expansion. We're going to get some volume increase. If I was running a 5-gallon machine, I'd put in about 4.5 gallons of liquid and get 5 back. Here I'm going to put in about 4 3/4 quarts of product and get back, 5 3/4 and get back about 6. I can adjust that a little bit, but not by much, not like ice cream products. So this thing has got homemade, super premium, Italian ice, gelato, frozen yogurt, cream ice, frozen custard, sorbet, sorbetto, sherbet, and frozen lemonade. And so all you have to do is pick the product that you want, and it'll go to the speed that you want. If you're an executive chef and you already know absolutely everything, you can pick a speed, like say frozen custard, and hit start. It's going to be very slow running. And then you could adjust it up and down manually. You could go higher by tapping it. You could go a little lower. And that's handy because, say, if I'm making gelato at 140 RPM, when the product's finished, I want to get it out of the machine as fast as I can. So I tap it up all the way to full speed just to help discharge it. Now, it doesn't sound like much of an invention. I have a motor that's got a variable speed. What's unique about it is if this was your dining room and these were your overhead lights and it's 100 watts and you're having a romantic dinner with your spouse and you want to dim them down to 25 watts, you turn down the dimmer and the lights get lower. What you're doing at that point is you're taking a 100-watt bulb and you're stealing the power from it. You're delivering it down to 25 watts. It's lost 3/4 of its power. If we did that on a machine, that we start at 100 watts of power and then dim it down to 25 watts, it won't have enough strength to pull through this liquid, which is then turning into a semi-solid. With my invention, no matter what speed I run this machine at, the pulling power, or what they call in cars the torque is going to be the same at a very low speed or a medium speed or a high speed. So it's the only machine on the market that has this. It's been that way for 14 years and no one has copied me yet. So we'll be just hitting Italian ice on that and letting it go. So I've got the sugar and water in there, and let me just go here to my schedule and hit Italian ice and start. That gets it spinning. Now I want it to get cold. Turn on the refrigeration. Now we're freezing. So now I'm going to add more products in here. I'm going to add the brownies. And this is another thing you can't do with any other machine, is put whole products into the machine because the openings are too small. And the manufacturer in the warranty will say, if you try to put anything in here, we're going to void your warranty. So we just stuff them all down. There's a whole one like that. This goes right in. Here's a big long one right in. So you can do bananas, nuts, cookies, anything you want. So you say, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is, especially in ice creams, for every particle of vanilla And if I was making brownie ice cream, now with every particle of vanilla in the machine, I also have a particle of brownie right next to it. So if you're blindfolded and you taste it, you go, yep, that's brownie. It's got a great intense brownie flavor. That's the way we put Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry into business. And then with time, they got up to about 250, 300,000 gallons a year with our machines, and then had to switch over to what's called a continuous freezer, which makes 1,000 gallons an hour, and you can't put anything into it. They have this long, narrow tube, only about that wide, making vanilla, and then out here is a $40,000 additional machine that injects the pieces of brownies or the strawberries. So what they have in their ice cream in Haagen-Dazs today is vanilla ice cream with brownies injected into it. We have, for every particle of dairy mix or Italian ice in the machine, we have a particle of brownie right next to it. And before you ask, yes, there's enough extra brownies that you can eat 2 or 3 of them without hurting the formula, because I already did. All right, that should be enough. Now again, I'm going to add the Hershey syrup. I got to watch the cameras. Like here's vanilla. I noticed the first batch I made today, I added, oh boy, I added vanilla with the machine off. But now that it's running, and see how it's spurting a little bit, I don't want to risk getting anything into this expensive vanilla. So I'm going to do it separately, just to play safe. And that's it. So that's a true Italian ice, but it's not a flavor that you expected. Any questions? What is the vanilla? That's Lockhead. There's 2 great vanillas, I think, in the country. There's Nielsen Massey and Lockhead. Lochead. And this is at my website. And this is an excellent one. This is an all-natural vanilla, which is mincing words, but it's a little cheaper. It's a lot cheaper than pure vanilla. It's all natural, but it's not pure. Thanks. There was another question? Yes. No, I'm running it on Italian ice. Yeah, it says Italian ice. I just punch it, and there we go. That's what the machine's doing. I've preset it for what I want it to run at. But then again, if you decide you want to change it, you can slow it down or speed it up. Maximum speed. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question about your machines. The air-cooled machine versus the water-cooled machine. Advantages to...
You have a lot of questions, you said?
No, just that one.
Oh, just that one. The question is air-cooled versus water-cooled. All the smaller ones are air-cooled, so that's the only way they come. They're going to put hot air into the room, but not a lot of it. The bigger machines are using even larger compressors, and they're going to take this room up and air-cooled from, say, 75 degrees up to 85 in about an hour. Now, a lot of people, over 90% of this model and bigger are water-cooled leaving here, not air-cooled. Air-cooled is only if you have a situation like you're in Jamaica, where water is scarce, you would buy an air-cooled. You're in Los Angeles County, where water-cooled equipment is banned, you would buy an air-cooled machine. Otherwise, you buy water cooled because it costs $1,000 less to buy it. You're not spending any money on electricity. You're spending money on water, and water's expensive, so is sewer. And I hear that all the time. But you look at your water bill from last year and you look at this year, and you'll see that it only went up a few pennies. It goes up very slowly. Your electric bill goes up 6 times a year. You got a machine that's going to last all of these 40 years or longer on average, and you can expect your electric bill is going to skyrocket over the life of the machine. So you're better off with a water-cooled unit. Oh, it's looking good. Anybody else? Another question? Yes. You have to cool the engine, what we call the compressor. This one's being cooled. Your home refrigerator has a 1/8 horsepower compressor, really tiny, about that big. This thing is 2 horse, like that. This one here is 3 horse. You have to cool it. So we're sucking in air from one direction and blowing it out the other. When you do water cooled, you don't have the air vents. You're sending cold water in. The small ones are air cooled. The larger ones are air or water, depending on your location. So this one is water cooled, and we're going to suck in cold water, cool the engine, and then send it back out again. And I've got it going to the sink because it's 108 degrees, and it's perfectly good for using to rinse some of the things that Jeff is rinsing right now. By the way, speaking of rinsing, this will save you a spaghetti colander. This will save you from calling a plumber once a week. You will have some nuts or chips or cookies or something left in the machine. Not very much, but a little bit. It doesn't take much to clog your drains. So you just go buy a cheap spaghetti colander, and every time you're pouring wastewater out, you pour it through the spaghetti colander to catch it. So for a $6 investment, you save clogging up your pipes. Oh, you're going to like this. Really nice and smooth.
Chocolate brownie Italian.
Yeah. See, now there's so much sugar in here from not just the sugar content, which was a normal for a lemon ice. There's so much sugar because of the brownies and the syrup and all that it's going to be just dead smooth. Nice. That's ready. Here we go. Now let me show you something before I serve it to you. This is called a squeeze cup. If you talk to a paper supplier and you ask for squeeze cups, you'll never find them. Its generic term is a pleated, like a lady's dress, a pleated water cup. You go over to the water fountain, you put your cup under and you drink it and you throw it away, or you're in prison and they give you a couple of bills and you take them and you drink this. We eat this from the bottom up and squeeze it up. This is the New York, New Jersey, New England way of eating Italian ice. So I'm going to just squeeze out. Oh, that's so good. I'm going to take a break. This is good.
I think we ought to put it here. And
where's the trash can? Now, I'm getting $2 for that 4-ounce portion. Look at this. Where'd it go? I had a really nice cup here. Yeah, I'll use this. Oh, you know what? Well, anyway, I could put it in this. Don't come up yet. I could put it in this and call it a chocolate brownie sorbet and get $7 for it. Or I've got a special thing for you today. I saw these on the internet and had to buy them. You'll never guess what baseball team I'm in favor of. But I have New York Yankee batters cap cups. And I have, just so you'll know, I washed them and sterilized them because I know where they came from. They came from Amazon.
Okay.
And so you have a souvenir. Go for it.
Okay.
You have a souvenir to take home, a New York Yankee batting cup.
First one. Come on.
So now, how much can we get for this? $6, $7 in this?
Since it's the Yankees, you can't get anything.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. Boston?
Raise.
Oh, Rays, of course. Oh, with those cowbells.